Okay. Well, welcome and thank you everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Dr. Sophia Maria Wenzler. Well, I just said my middle name. My name is Dr. Sophia Wenzler. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist and the clinical lead here at SkinPick. SkinPick is a therapist-assisted online program to help you cope with skin picking disorder and basically bringing this webinar to you. I'm going to talk for about 40 minutes. And after that, we're going to have a Q&A question section where you can ask any and all of the questions that might come up during my presentation. Please write all of those questions down in the Q&A section. Please don't raise your hand. Please write the questions down. You can do that during the presentation or afterwards. And I'm going to try to answer as many of those as I can. Also, at the end of the presentation, you're going to get a promo code in case you want to sign up for SkinPick for a $100 discount for your first subscription. So that's another reason to stick around. Today, we're going to talk about expectations versus reality and more specifically about how expectations can shape the way we feel and how that can affect, your mental health and well-being during the holidays that are coming up. We're going to talk about how the holiday season affects mental health in general. A little bit about what expectations actually are, why we need them, why we have them, what the difference is between high or rigid expectations and realistic expectations. And then I want to do some reflection together with you because I know this is a stressful time. We're all busy in December, and I want to stop a little bit and think about your expectations and how you can maybe make them realistic in a way where you are going to have this wonderful feeling of meeting your expectations and being happy about that. Then I'm going to give you some general coping strategies for the holidays, and we're going to conclude and jump into the Q&A session. All right, so mental health during the holiday season. I do find that there is much more awareness these days that the holidays are not a cozy, beautiful, romantic time, like we know it from the holidays for everyone. There's much more awareness and even a lot of talk about how mental health can decrease or suffer during the holiday season. When I was looking into what we know based on research in terms of mental health during the holiday season, I was actually quite surprised. I didn't find as much as I would think. And also some of the results were contradicting, but I'm going to present to you some of the findings that I found interesting. I found two huge surveys, one from Great Britain and one from the US, that show that for those of you who think that the holidays are a time of poor mental health, that is actually not 100% true. So in Great Britain, actually 69% of the people who answered, so about 2/3, said that the holiday season had a favorable effect or no effect on their mental health. And only 26% reported an adverse effect. Something similar is true for the US, where only 41% of the participants in this survey said that they had experienced higher stress levels during the holiday season. So all in all, people are getting through the holiday season okay, right? But there are some groups or subgroups in the population that have a little bit of a harder time. So from this survey from Great Britain from 2019, we see that for women, the holidays are a little bit more difficult than for men, as you see in this left graph, okay? So the women are pink and the men are purple. And you see that women tend to be more stressed and more anxious during the holiday season, which the survey didn't really have a concrete answer for, but in theory, I mean, you might imagine that women are still a little bit more involved in maybe preparing the meals or shopping for the presents for the kids or hosting. So they might be more anxious and stressed in general. Another group that enjoys holidays less are people older than 45 years, which I'm not going to call old, but like older than 45 years. You see here in the graph, the pink line, the people who say Christmas, in this case, it's Christmas. Obviously, not everyone celebrates Christmas. That's why I talk about the holidays, but this one specifically was about Christmas. So Christmas has a positive impact. This line goes down with age, right? So with age, the holidays seem to be less enjoyable, maybe because you're less, in the role of the child that comes home, even, when you're in college or when you're a young adult, you still come home, your parents prepare a meal for you or give you some presents in an ideal world, and that changes, and then all of a sudden you're in a different position and maybe feel that the holidays are a little bit more stressful and less enjoyable. And one group that really, really seems to struggle during the holidays are people with mental health conditions, which includes skin picking disorder. So 64% of people who have a mental health condition say that the holidays worsen their condition. So they seem to specifically struggle with the high stress levels or expectations, or maybe have trouble managing their mental health condition during that specific time. Okay, so we see there's a lot of differences between the way people and how they perceive the holidays. So, like, you could ask yourself, what's going on? Why is it difficult for some people, less for others? And obviously, there's different factors that influence or experience during the holidays, as we just learned. But I think one main element that can really influence how we perceive the holidays and can differ even from year to year. I mean, you might have a year where the holiday season is really beautiful, and then another one where you're really disappointed. And one huge factor of influence is the expectations with which we enter the holiday season. And a lot of those expectations are actually shaped by the media, advertisements, Instagram, TikTok, all of those social channels. And you almost can't help it, right? It's so ever present on TV, everywhere you go, the decorations, this idea that the holidays have to be a peaceful, harmonious, beautiful, celebratory time. And that is problematic because even if, your holiday festivities are decent, even if you're like, completely okay, even if they're like, if it would have been any other day, you would have been completely happy with this day. If you have those high expectations, the difference between reality and what you expect might be very disappointing. So that's what I want to talk about today, but I'm gonna just take a step back and talk about expectations in general, because I find that working with my clients here in SkinPick, but also in my private practice, expectations play such a huge role in how we perceive and go through our lives. And oftentimes it's we're not really aware of this really strong influence that our expectations play for us and for how we feel. An expectation is a prediction of what will or should happen in the future. Okay. And we need predictions, we need expectations, because otherwise life would just constantly surprise us, and that would make us feel very unsafe, right? So we make predictions for the future, and if they are true, we feel a sense of stability. And if not, that can make us feel all kinds of things: frustration, anxiety, helplessness. And there are some expectations, if we really take a general definition of the word expectation, that are simpler. For example, our expectations or it's regarding whether the bus is going to arrive on time or whether the sun will, come up in the morning. Those expectations are clearly built on learning processes, on our experience throughout life, going through this world. When it comes to more complex expectations, for example, the expectations we have of ourselves, then it's a little bit more complicated. Expectations, for example, of what kind of partner I want to be, what kind of parent to my child, expectations regarding academic performance. And those are not based solely on experience, learning, and knowledge. Those come from somewhere else, and largely our expectations of ourselves and sometimes of other people come from our parents. Okay, our parents or our primary caregivers have a huge impact on what we expect from ourselves. We internalize rules, morals, and expectations that our parents communicate to us or model to us by their own behavior. And we internalize them almost to the degree where they become a voice in our head. And how much we internalize, how much we kind of soak up this environment we grow up in depends on how those rules are communicated. So our parents' parenting style and our own temperament as children. If we are children who are more stubborn, have their own will, a high need for independence, then we might be a little less likely to internalize our parents' expectations. We still will do that, but to a lesser degree. And if the parents communicate in a very strict and cold way, we are also less likely to kind of internalize those standards. But when the rules are communicated in a clear but loving and understanding way, and if we are open to it, if we're maybe more agreeable as children in our temperament, then there is going to be a high degree to which we internalize those rules and morals. Yeah, I think that's enough here because that's not going to be the main topic. But you see, it's much more complicated than expectations towards fact and outside events. Other influences on the expectations we have for ourselves, our peers specifically, and especially in adolescence, they have a huge influence in the way we think we should be or act. And as I mentioned, for example, when it comes to expectations towards ourselves during the holidays, then it can also be media, television, the culture we grow up in, and advertisements and other influences as well. So basically, you could say that when our expectations are realistic and flexible, there are compass in life. Expectations are very, very important. We need those predictions, as I mentioned, and they are deeply meaningful and really affect our self-confidence and identity. I'm going to go into more detail regarding that as well. That's why if our expectations are not flexible and realistic, but if they are rigid and too high, if you consistently expect more from yourself than you can actually manage, expectations can also have a very negative effect on your life. This is not a real, online test or anything like that, but just if you're asking yourself right now, well, do I have high expectations of myself? What's normal, right? How would I know if I had high expectations? I mean, if I just soaked that up in childhood, if I just internalized it, how would I ever know if it's realistic or too high or rigid? And that's a good question. So I have a few examples here of statements, okay? And you can ask yourself while we go through them, would I agree to that or not? And if you agree to more than half of them, and that is an indicator that your expectations of yourself might be high. So the first one, I must be the best at most of what I do. I can't accept second best. I strive to keep almost everything in perfect order. I have so much to accomplish that there's almost no time to really relax. I must meet all my responsibilities. I often sacrifice pleasure and happiness to meet my own standards. I can't let myself off the hook easily or make excuses for my mistakes. Okay. So after you tuned in with yourself and thought about what you expect from yourself generally, let's look into what high rigid expectations are. So high rigid and high, I mean, that's obvious. Rigid expectations mean that they are inflexible, right? That they're stiff in kind of. And high rigid expectations are expectations that don't value our own needs next to those expectations. Expectations that don't care about what we can and can't control. Expectations that make us feel bad when we make mistakes. And expectations that don't consider context. So an example for a rigid expectation would be the following. I'm so tired, I have no idea why I slept 8 hours and I'm not sick. I should feel well and rested. And I chose this one specifically because I hear it a lot. I've heard myself say this. So this is a very common expectation, right? It's almost like our body and our well-being are a calculator, and if you add 8 hours of sleep to like normal health and not being sick, then you should get the result of feeling rested, right? Um, so if your expectation of yourself considers you as a person just like a computer or a calculator. If I put in the same values to the equation, I should get the same result, right? Then that is a sign for a rigid expectation because it doesn't take into consideration context, the quality of our sleep, our hormone levels, where we are in our cycle, um, or such things as how exhausting was my day, or what did I dream, all of those things. So it's a rigid expectation. There are some common beliefs or kind of false assumptions that often come or lie at the base of high expectations that I want to go through and just challenge with you and for you a little bit because they're really common. So the first one, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. And some people say this in terms of like, if I do something, it's going to be high quality and it's going to be good. If I do something, I'm going to do it all the way. So oftentimes we just accept this assumption or belief or guideline, but it's actually not helpful. You know, be careful because approaching things with those expectations can lead to avoidance and procrastination. It can really get you stuck in life, stuck in the details, and it's not realistic. We cannot do everything perfectly. We're not computers again. We can't do everything 100%. We can't give 100% all the time. So sometimes we will wing things. Sometimes we will do things 70% or 80% or 50%. And that's fine if you want to get ahead in life. The second one, if I am kind to myself, I will stop pushing myself to do better. Being kind to myself is just like giving up. That's also one that I encounter quite a lot with my clients. This feeling that, okay, well, I have this critical, demanding voice in myself that pushes me all the time to have really high expectations of myself. And if I let go of that, if I'm actually kind to myself, that means I'm not pushing myself anymore. So I'm not going to make any progress, right? But that is not true. You don't need to be self-critical or pushy. You can be kind to yourself and still, aim far. Um, and a good example to clarify that is to think of this, pushy, demanding voice in your head and kind of imagine it like an authority figure, like a parent or a teacher. Let's say a teacher. Okay. Imagine you are the student and this voice in your head is the teacher, and you're kind of trying to solve a math problem, right? And you're stuck, not working. And then this teacher comes over and says, what? Why are you not getting this math problem done, right? Are you really concentrating? Are you trying hard enough? Have you tried long enough? Just push yourself a little harder and then you'll manage. Now, imagine a different teacher. And the teacher comes over and sits down next to you and says, wow, you're really stuck with this math problem. What's going on? Let's figure this out together. First of all, just know that like getting stuck is part of the process and making mistakes is okay, right? You can't get everything right at the first time. But now that we accept that you're stuck, let's think about, okay, what is not working? What have you not understood? Do we have to get back in the material? Do we have to review something? Do you need help from someone? And then think about, with which teacher might be more likely to help you to move on. So I think if you think about it that time, you still can have a guiding voice in your head that wants you to advance in life, but that voice doesn't have to be pushy. It doesn't have to demand from you to be perfect and 100% all the time, right? So you don't need that critical voice. And we can't delete it, right? But you don't have to listen to it to push yourself. Another common belief that leads to high expectation is others will think badly of me if I'm not perfect. Um, if that's something you think frequently, then that's a sign that your expectations in general are not internally driven, but by your need for approval. And that basically means that even if you reach those expectations again and again, you're never going to be happy about them. It's a race that has no end. So that's something that should, lead you to question this belief. And finally, if I'm not perfect, that means I'm doing a bad job. Anything below perfect is not acceptable. That leads to you feeling like you're failing, although you're trying really hard all the time. That leads to you never or barely or rarely feeling like you did a good job. And that will severely affect your sense of self-worth because you need to have the feeling of success frequently. You need to get to a place where, okay, I did a good enough job. I'm allowed to tap myself on the shoulder. You have to have this experience frequently to feel motivated to go on and to feel good about yourself. So those are all reasons why high expectations, although we sometimes think we need them, right, to advance in life, actually, a lot of the times, high expectations are what hold us down, what get us stuck, what makes us avoid and procrastinate. So less glamorous, less you can do it, less all of those fancy slogans that are really not helpful. What we really need is realistic expectations, okay? Realistic expectations, if you are asking yourself, okay, what is that? Realistic expectations can be divided into small steps, right? If you have a realistic expectation, you're going to know which steps you have to take to reach your goal and to meet your expectation. Realistic expectations are flexible. They take into account your limitations, the means and abilities that you need to meet the expectation. They have a time frame. They have a beginning and an end, because if you have no end, you're not going to have this moment where you need to tap yourself on the shoulder. And also, oh God, I'm saying tap myself on the shoulder so many times, but it's so important. And it also, while culture pushes us towards like really high and unrealistic expectations, culture doesn't encourage enough the fact that we need to be proud of ourselves and then we need to tap ourselves on the shoulder. It's almost like frowned upon, but it's so important. When I have a client that, actively voices and expresses that they are proud of themselves, there are like those are those are some of the most beautiful moments I have as a therapist. So you need to have a realistic chance of success based on your expectations. Very important. Okay, so let's take some time to reflect. In general, if you think about your plans for the holidays, um, how you want to celebrate, who's going to be there, where are you going to be, what are your responsibilities, okay? What are your expectations? Take a moment. Let's take a moment. I know the holidays are very stressful, right? So let's be mindful now for half a minute and think about it a little bit. What are you looking forward to? Okay. Um, so a lot of people, when they think about the holidays, um, their expectations include things like this protected feeling that you have, or that some of us have, when we're back, with our parents and our family. The expectation to see lots of people, coziness, feeling happy, connected with your family, perfect celebrations, feeling calm, receiving and giving amazing gifts, and disconnecting from work. Those might be, I mean, those are not necessarily problematic expectations, right? I mean, obviously, that's something we all want, or for everyone, there's something in there that we want. But that's also in terms of making our expectations realistic, consider limitations that might be involved with the holidays. Okay, so think about who you're celebrating with. Which of those people generally make you feel good? Which of them might be more problematic? What difficult situations could come up or have come up for you in the past? What are your financial resources? What are realistic gifts? If you have specific expectations, like having a beautiful celebration with your family, what will it take from you to make this expectation a reality? And will you be missing someone? So keeping those positive expectations and possible limitations in mind, I want to guide you through some um, examples of unrealistic and realistic expectations concerning the holidays. Okay, so a high expectation might be I'm going to spend as much time with family and friends as I can. In order to take this expectation, still take its essence, but make it a little bit realistic, we could say, I will make a list of the people I really want to see the most. I will plan some breaks just for myself. And if I feel like I missed someone important, I will can make a date with those people for after the holidays. So I'm going to spend as much time with family and friends as I can. There's no beginning and end to this. There's no concrete definition of when I have reached my goal. There is no concrete steps that I have to take, right? That's why it's a problematic expectation. Another one. I don't want to fight with my older sister like every year because who doesn't fight with their family or who isn't sometimes annoyed by their family? A more realistic expectation would be my sister is going to annoy me at some point, very likely going to annoy me at some point. I'm going to try to put myself in her shoes when that happens. If that doesn't calm me down, if it's still too much, I will leave the room. If I do that, I can be proud of myself. So here, that's also this very, very important point that if meeting my expectation has to be in my control, it has to depend only on me, right? I can only influence my own behavior. So I'm gonna set some expectations of how I'm gonna handle the fact that sometimes I get annoyed at my sister. I'm not gonna control what she does. And if I meet my own standards and expectations, then I'm gonna be proud of myself no matter what the outcome. I will be fully present without thinking about work during the holidays. That's an unrealistic expectation. To make it more probable, you could say I'm going to go offline every evening starting 4 p.m. to be present with my loved ones. During the day, I will set aside time to check my texts and mails once. So again, clear steps, clear expectations, and a clear idea of what I have to do to meet that expectation and feel good about myself. And now I did show you research that shows that if you have a mental health condition, then the holidays might be a little bit more tricky for you. So there are maybe specific expectations that you have in terms of the holidays when it comes to your picking. And some examples of high expectations that we can have towards the holidays from ourselves when it comes to body-focused repetitive behaviors might be that you're going to be completely able to cope with whatever stress comes up, eating only healthy food, the idea that you go through the holidays without anyone noticing any possible picking, that during the holidays you might have more time to self-monitor or work on the picking, that you're going to go do a perfect skincare routine every day, that you're going to be able to avoid all triggers, stay calm, and just be like everyone else for whatever that means. And I want you to take another moment of mindfulness during the stressful time and think about, do you have any expectations of yourself when it comes to your picking during the holidays? And with that in mind, I want to look at some more examples of unrealistic and realistic expectations. Okay. So an unrealistic expectation would be if I pick during the holidays, it is going to ruin everything. That's actually a very problematic thought that can come up in skin picking disorder, not only during the holidays, but generally. Like if I pick one more time, or that horrible picking episode I had yesterday is going to ruin my whole day or my whole week, my whole evening. A more realistic expectation or way to relate to yourself could be, I will very likely pick as much as I pick now during the holidays, maybe even more because it can be stressful and triggering. And I will practice self-compassion and allow myself to feel my emotions, even if they're negative. Another unrealistic expectation, I love my family. That's why I want to be with them all day long. I want to spend so much time with my family. Um, More realistically, you could tell yourself, I love my family, but sometimes they really trigger me. Family can be difficult and annoying. So I will spend a lot of time with them, but I will also take time for myself. It is okay to love someone, but also to get annoyed by them and at them. Another unrealistic expectation, I have to work on my skin picking during the holidays as well. Now I have even more time. To make this more realistic, you could think the holidays are a stressful time. I will choose 1 to 2 of my most helpful strategies and implement those every day. If I implement the strategies, that's a success. Even if I pick, or even if my picking is worse during the holidays, as long as I work on myself, that's success. Finally, this expectation that a lot of people have of themselves, nobody can notice my picking. But that is not in your control. That's unrealistic. That's an expectation where you don't have the chance, where there's a high risk that other people's behavior is going to affect whether you can meet this expectation or not. So a more realistic expectation would be, I will put on makeup as much as I want. So I'm going to do things to hide my picking. That's okay. I'm going to be self-compassion towards that, but I can't control whether other people notice. So I will prepare a few options of how to answer that make my boundaries clear in case someone does, notice and make a comment or look at me. Um, so here you have a much clearer definition and higher chance to meet your expectation. Okay. So now I really hope that all of you have the tools and a kind of an idea of how to set yourself up for success by creating realistic expectations towards the holidays. Um, and since, as we see based on research, the holidays are not a difficult season for everyone, but for a lot of people, and specifically for people who cope with a mental health condition, I want to just give you some coping strategies to still make the holidays as enjoyable, harmonious, and celebratory as possible, right? Okay. And there's a lot of different strategies and ideas, obviously, because this is a broad topic. So I try to kind of break it down to some general ideas or directions. So first of all, I want to advise you to stay connected to yourself during the holiday season. There's so much going on. There's so many people around you, right? So try to schedule and try to remember to regularly check in with yourself. And checking in with yourself means 2 things. It means to stop and try to connect and pay attention to your feelings, right? Having many different fluctuating feelings is our natural state of being as humans, right? So expecting to from ourselves to feel happy, calm, and harmonious all the time is not only unrealistic, it's just against human nature. So you want to tune into your emotions because your emotions connect you to what you need. And if you listen to what you need and become your own best friend, um, and meet your own needs, then you can have that's going to make you feel good and balanced, right? So if you feel anxious, that means you have a need for safety, stability, and predictability. So if you notice I'm anxious, think about what makes you feel anxious and think about what you need right now to feel safe. If you get angry or annoyed, that most likely means that you are in need of a boundary. What kind of boundary do you need? What is the thing that crosses your boundary right now? And then set the boundary in order to meet your own needs, right? That's why those check-ins are very important. Boundaries in general are important during the holiday season. Um, and I want to remind you because a lot of the times people think that a boundary is something that I communicate. And that is true, but sometimes not effective enough. Sometimes a boundary is more than saying to your annoying uncle, hey, if you quiz me about my dating life and ask me constantly why I haven't found a partner yet, it makes me feel bad about myself. That might not necessarily make your uncle, stop his behavior. But sometimes what we need to say is, I will not let you make me feel like a failure by quizzing me about my relationships. I will leave the room for a few minutes if you do that, or I will completely ignore those questions, right? So the most effective, sometimes confrontational, but most effective kind of boundary is the one where we have an action in hand, on hand. It's the I will not let you, that in the boundary that makes a difference. So that's just general about boundaries, but obviously this is a huge topic. Some common ways to set boundaries during the holidays might be declining extra responsibilities. If you feel like you're the one who always ends up doing all the stuff, then remember you can also not do the things. Set a boundary. To budget your limits is a boundary. Limiting exposure to complicated family members is a boundary. Leaving a situation that is overwhelming to you is setting a boundary. And also less related to other people, maybe just for your own well-being, sometimes avoiding or limiting how much alcohol you drink or how much unhealthy food you eat is also a boundary that's good for you. Another big topic or guideline or advice that I want to give to you is prioritize during the holidays. It can be overwhelming. You might want to meet all the people. You might feel triggered by certain situations. So planning can make the holidays much more enjoyable to you. Plans really help us set realistic expectations because we make the plan when we're still balanced and calm and can concentrate, right? And then we have the plan in hand for moments when we might feel overwhelmed or confused. Plans provide a sense of safety, they give us direction, and they help us organize our thoughts, right? And specifically, if you anticipate difficult moments during the holidays, then this is even more of a reason to make a plan of how to navigate those situations. And that plan might be a safe word with your spouse that signals to your spouse that you need help or that your spouse has to help you leave a situation. A plan might be a close person that will be available and on call for you. Um, Such a plan might be an escape plan. And kind of a, how do you call this? Reason or a thing you can say when you want to leave a situation or the house. Um, or it can even just be an activity that you can propose that you think about in advance if you feel like a situation is difficult or boring or annoying to you. And then finally, think finding a good balance between still working on yourself, still working towards your recovery during the holidays, but also being self-compassionate um, is difficult. Progress isn't linear, but if we take small steps every day, then that's enough. And that means we're on our way. So usually I advise my clients to not think of the holidays as a time where they're going to have a lot of progress in terms of their symptoms. Usually the holidays is a time where we either rest a little bit with practicing coping strategies and working on progress, or a time where we feel more stressed and triggered, and then it's even harder to work to progress in our recovery. So my best advice is to just still keep on doing the smallest steps that you can realistically do during the holidays. So think about all the coping strategies in terms of the picking, all the things that you know help you, and choose one or two of them. Two, I think, is a good number. And say, okay, I'm going to do that throughout the holidays consistently. I cannot really 100% control how much I'm going to pick, how stressful this time is going to be, but I'm going to work on applying those coping strategies. And if I manage that, then I'm going to then I've met my expectation, and I'm going to be proud of myself. And those coping strategies can be anything from exercise to little mindfulness moment. For example, a quick body scan. Body scan is really, really effective for skin picking. Eating well and drinking water, getting enough sleep, spending time in nature, stimulus control techniques such as limiting mirror time, having fidgets available, or journaling. Okay, so let's conclude. While many people feel elevated stress levels during the holidays, that doesn't necessarily mean that the holidays are not enjoyable. There are specific groups in the population that are a little bit more vulnerable to feeling stressed, overwhelmed, anxious, or feeling that their mental health decreases during the holidays. And those groups include women, people older than 45, and especially people who struggle with mental health issues before the holidays. One major factor that makes us feel frustrated or disappointed during the holidays is the fact that we have very high, rigid, and unrealistic expectations of what the holidays are supposed to look like. So being mindful, reflecting on the expectations you have of the holidays beforehand, and then changing those in a way that they become realistic and reachable is really setting yourself up for success. And realistic expectations require conscious effort where you relate to your own limitations, create small manageable steps, and a clear idea of what success will be. Generally, if we think about the holidays, then what I recommend you to do is check in with yourself, your emotions regularly, so you can take care of your own needs, setting boundaries, prioritizing what is important to you, best case by making plans and sticking to mental health routines that can make a huge difference and keep you on your path to recovery even during the holidays. Um, as always, here are our free resources, obviously the monthly webinars that you're participating in right now. We have online forums and blogs on our website, skinpick.com, and we're available on all the social channels. So please follow us, please subscribe and sign up. Those places are great opportunities for our community and centers of information and treatment options. Okay, that's it for today. If you do decide to sign up for a skin pick or online therapy program, then you have a promo code here, webinar 100, that will give you a $100 discount on your first subscription period. And now would be an excellent time for you to write down any questions that might have come up during my presentation. Mm. Okay, no questions so far. That's unusual. Thank you. As always, your webinar is excellent. Well, thank you so much. Maybe I didn't leave any questions open. Also, if you have questions about our program, skin picking in general, BFRBs, I'd be happy to answer. Okay, I think there's no questions today. Um, in that case, I want to thank all of you for joining this webinar, for listening and participating. And I hope you're gonna be mindful about your expectations so you have the best possible time during the holidays. And hope I'm gonna see all of you. Oh wait, no, I was already in my finishing speech. There is a question. What are some things to consider when finding someone to be a support body? Oh, that's a beautiful question. Um, what are some things to consider when finding someone to be a support body? Like, what are the things you want to consider to evaluate whether someone is a good support body? Well, a support buddy should be someone obviously that you feel comfortable with and that is available to you. And then after that, I think it really is up to you. Like you have to have a clear idea of what kind of support you need, you know, what that support buddy should do for you or how that they should react to you. And if you can communicate that clearly and if the other person has the ability and the sensitivity to understand that, um, then that will set you up for success, I guess. I think being able to understand what you need and being able to communicate that is key, actually, from your side. And then if you have another person who cares about you, is empathetic, and is willing to be there for you, they're gonna be managed, you know, to provide that support. And the support buddy obviously is a wonderful thing when you're going through the holidays. So yeah, I love that question. I'm gonna go back to my finishing statement. I hope you're gonna have a wonderful holidays, whatever kind of holidays you're celebrating. Um, and I hope to see all of you back in the new year for our upcoming webinars, which are going to be amazing. We're going to have some guests as well, which I'm really excited about, and you're going to hear about that in our newsletter. All right. Have a great rest of your day. Bye.